Well, let's get into the discussion. Following the Deputy President's remarks, we're asking you how should partners in the Government of National Unity move forward after that budget vote impasse? So share your thoughts with us via WhatsApp. The number is 072-110-5584 or give us a call on 010-594-6010. We're going to have a debate, of course, on what others see as the future of the Government of National Unity. We're joined in studio by MK Party spokesperson, Mr. Ntlamulo Ntlela, the Economic Freedom Fighters senior researcher, Dr. Kumani Chimorula. We also are joined by the SACP's First Deputy General Secretary, Madala Masuku, who joins us via video link. Of course, we have reached out to the ANC and the Democratic Alliance to join this discussion. Unfortunately, both parties were unavailable. And no surprises, of course, that both parties would be unavailable, because at this point we wait to see what comes out of this NWC meeting. But I'm keen to hear from you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Chimorula, I think I want to start with you. Here we are, the Deputy President of the African National Congress saying, we're mulling over the future of this Government of National Unity with the Democratic Alliance as part of it. Did you see this coming, and certainly this soon?
Well, look, thank you, Naledi, for having us, and good evening to the viewers of Newsroom. Let's not be too simplistic about it. What the Deputy President is saying, without saying it, is that currently those parties who are in coalition government don't have a program, both economic program, government program at all levels. In other words, this is the first budget. Remember, we had the medium-term budget policy, which is a precursor to what we're waiting for now. So what was tabled by the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, is an ANC via the Treasury, what you can call economic policy statement. The DA has rejected that, meaning that the DA is saying, in admission, there is no agreement in a way forward. And that finds itself and it manifests in an economic policy. If you can't agree on an economic policy, you can't agree on anything else, because everything else that you are going to do as government trickles down from an economic policy, which is fundamentally dependent on the kind of budget that you have. So the Deputy President today, what he has done is giving us an indication that in his view, there is no government of national unity. And we need to listen to that point. We don't need to go and misrepresent his views. We can, of course, explain other things, but let's first appreciate the significance of what he has said. There is no agreement. There's no agreement on the economic policy, and therefore, he doesn't see how they're going to move forward together. And the EFF has been correct from the beginning in characterizing this arrangement of the DA and the ANC, that they will not be able to develop a coordinated and coherent economic program, because they may agree on some neoliberal tenets of how they want the economy to look, meaning the involvement of the private sector, as the SACP has indicated in the past. But the bottom line is that they don't see the kind of constituency that they need to service in the same way. The DA is not looking at black people as participating mainly in the economy, but the ANC is trying to bring in black people to participate in the economy. But they are not willing to change the structure of the economy itself, which is impossible, meaning that you can then not have a coordinated and coherent program. And the current breakdown that we're seeing now, it's simply because there is no coherent economic program between the two. I mean, the other parties you can talk about, Action SA, IFP, and I mean, they don't even have a stake in this conversation within cabinet and the GNU. They're just following through with their small numbers to support seemingly this marriage. But the bottom line is that if you can't have an economic program between the ANC and the DA, you don't have government.
That tug of war, though, has been there for a very long time in this Government of National Unity. Certainly when you talk about expropriation, Bella, NHI, some of those issues are very clear to us. But there was a sense that the two parties could find a middle, and we're not seeing that with something as important as a fiscal framework and a budget. I mean, what's the position of the MK Party here on what does need to be done for the sake of fiscal stability? We know that, for instance, the MK Party also not very happy with the budget that was presented to us.
I think the first point that we need to focus on, and we've been saying this, is that there is no Government of National Unity. I mean, the Government of National Unity, I think this is important, is formed off the back of a crisis. This so-called Government of National Unity has become a crisis for the country. And, you know, they're more sort of a liability for our people too, because they're finding themselves, as the doctor said, you know, arguing on policy posture programs because of the dichotomy of policy posture that they have. So they are on South Pole and North Pole. And now the DA now then uses its position, and we refer to them quite honestly as an opportunistic Trojan horse stance, where they are then using their position as an opposition within the GNU, as opposed to now sitting on the other end to try and drive their agenda and using their political posture within the GNU to then drive, and barter with people's votes. And that's what's happening here. We, as Umkhonto weSizwe, have continuously said that for the past 7 years, it's been an austerity-based budget. There's been always an increase in tax, no spending whatsoever. If you look at this fiscal framework and the budget right now, they're looking at 5%, of investment on infrastructure. You're not going to, and they're saying that, that will lead to a projected 1.9% on economic growth. That's not going to happen. If you want to actually ensure that you grow this economy, the first thing that you have to do is expenditure. And what do? You take 10%, you double that infrastructure investment to 10%. By doing that, you're actually increasing 30% of the investment ratio in the country. What does that do? That unlocks jobs, because infrastructure creates productivity, creates jobs. And then effectively, when you do your investment, you invest in logistics, effectively all your network industries, energy, logistics, as well as, telecoms in this case. So you cannot grow an economy if you're going to be focusing on an austerity-based budget, and more so if you're going to be looking at just cutting as opposed to spending. This economy needs expenditure, as opposed to the DA's posture, which we know is driven by business, because this GNU's mandate is imperialistic, informed by neocolonial policies, and their agenda is just to satisfy business. We're here, as Umkhonto weSizwe, we believe that we're the only party that can come up with programs, especially with our partners in the Progressive Caucus, which are aligned to us in terms of thinking and policy posture, to ensure that we have a pro-poor budget. And the only way to do that is based on the propositions that we've just submitted right now.
Yeah, you talk about the role of business, and it's something that I think we should get into a little bit later on in the discussion. For instance, you did have already Business Unity South Africa saying that they've written to both the African National Congress and the Democratic Alliance asking that this GNU does need to hold. But then you've got an interesting political role player in the South African Communist Party. Now, Mr. Masuku, this is why I bring you in here, because as a member of the Tripartite Alliance, you have come out quite emphatically and said that the DA should no longer be part of this government of national unity. And I'm really keen to hear that argument. But then I want to throw something at you as well and say, why should your alliance partner, the ANC, listen to the position of the SACP when the SACP could very well be going at it politically alone next year?
Oh, thanks very much, and thanks also to the viewers. No, we have, as a Communist Party from the beginning, have said to the ANC the route of having the DA as an anchor in that unity of government of the years is not going to work. Clearly, because of just what the colleague from the EFF was actually outlining. You can't have two economic trajectory and think that you're going to go. You're going to be disagreeing all the time, and cause there's a very same issue that people are saying there's going to be an instability. You're going to create an instability in that. And again, at the moment, we're not saying that. It's not like we're starting afresh to say kick them out. We're saying no, you can't be in government and at the same time you want to be an opposition. You must choose. The MKP is here, the EFF is here, has chosen and say, no. The framework that we're having is not okay. We're going to represent our own constituencies in parliament. So why do you want to go and create two? Because in South Africa, we now have two governments. The DA and the ANC government. Where have you seen that? It just shows that the immaturity of this party.
Yeah, but there was the second part of my question there, Mr. Masuku, about the importance of the voice of the SACP when we're talking about the ANC and whether or not it listens to its own Tripartite Alliance member.
Look, even if it can listen to it, but immediately you take a neoliberal trajectory in your economic look, you're going to have a problem because you're going to lie. You're going to lie to us. You're going to lie to the people. The reality now is that objectively, the situation is in such a way that the ANC is beginning to choose more to go to the right. And we are saying, no, you can't go to the right because our relationship is based on us implementing the National Democratic Revolution that is anchored on the Freedom Charter. So if you start moving away from the Freedom Charter, we can't be there. And even people are beginning to say, because you've mobilized them behind the Freedom Charter, so people are beginning to say, no, but we don't hear you. So we're saying in between them and the people are going to choose the people.
Yeah.
And represent what they say they want to have.
Yeah, there's still a lot to talk about. One of the things that we also saw in the previous 7 days was, of course, a party like Action SA, outside of the Government of National Unity, saying that it would support the ANC's budget. And of course, we heard from Herman Mashaba, the leader, saying we would be keen to be a part of this Government of National Unity. An opportunity in a few moments to hear what the position certainly of the MK party and the EFF would be if they would be keen at this point, now that the ANC is mulling over its relationship with the DA, to be part of the Government of National Unity. But we're taking calls 010-594-6010. Kanyiso is in Peter Maritzburg. Kanyiso, good evening.
Yes, hello?
Yes, Kanyiso, talk to us. Good evening, we're listening.
Yeah, okay, I just need to ask something there, especially from our guest there, Mr. Nhlamulo Ndlela from MKP. Yeah, so as we did vote for our party, as they abstained for us, I just heard that there were some of the what's called the members that did not attend there from the parliament when we were supposed to attend for that just to have the vote when they were voting for the budget. So how can they explain that for the community that did vote for them, that there were members that were not there for the to the parliament, you see?
Okay.
Just to, yeah.
Okay, Kanyiso, I think that's an important question. Thank you so much for that. We're taking WhatsApps as well on 072-110-5584. Nhlamulo, do you want to respond to that? But as you do, and I think it's an important question because it certainly speaks to whether or not those MK party members, had they been in parliament, would we have seen a different result? Something that needs to be clarified, certainly for your own supporters. And then there's the issue of, now that we find ourselves at this trajectory, and I see a little smile on your face there, would the MK party ever want to be a member of this Government of National Unity? We'll get you answers to that question and more on the other side. Let's do this. Welcome back. We're in conversation with the MK party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, as well as the SACP, as we look at what is going on inside the Government of National Unity, from the outside looking in, if you will, and getting the opposition and also Tripartite Alliance members' views on the stability of this Government of National Unity. This is as the ANC sits within its National Working Committee to mull on the way forward with its relationship with the Democratic Alliance. Taking calls on 010-594-6010. Steve is in Soweto. Steve, good evening. Thanks for calling.
Good evening.
Yes, talk to us.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. We're listening to you, Steve. Go ahead.
We the people, we the voters of South Africa, we don't want that GNU to disband. We would like to see that here with the ANC moving forward. There is no reverse gear because all the politicians are looking for space for their own parties and their own gains. And what we have already seen from what we have recognized from the little time that we had with the GNU, we were heading somewhere, at least. There was a green light at the end of the tunnel. But now if these guys are going, ANC is going to take his way and DA, then we're going to have the biggest problems that we never had in South Africa.
Such
that
as?
we must tell you.
Yeah.
We want those people to be together. ANC must stop. I mean, DA has done a mistake, and they can rectify that mistake and move forward in order to make South Africa better. That's what we are looking at.
Okay.
We don't need any other new people there. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Steve, thank you so much for that. Let's take WhatsApp, 0721105584. Wilson Makwandana says DA must not be allowed to use the poor and VAT to score political mileage. They got just above 20% or so votes, and their participation in the GNU cannot be equal to the 40% achieved by the ANC. Wilson, thank you so much for sending in that message. Let's see another one coming in via our WhatsApp. Victor Moodley says, so the Deputy President thinks the budget must be passed so that ministers can get the salaries. The DA is concerned about economic growth and the creation of more jobs. Get rid of the Deputy Minister positions. Victor is with that one. And Paladi in Mabopane says the DA is the opposition, period. Kick them out of the government of national unity. So let's play, I suppose, a game of what ifs now. One of the questions before the break, then, Tlamola, I'll let you take this one first, was membership that wasn't there on the day of the budget vote. Is that a concern for the MK party? Would it have made a difference? And were the opportunity to be there, would the MK party want to find itself within the government of national unity?
Look, I think one thing to note, and let's inform South Africans on this, is that numerically it would still have passed. So in effect, even if we had sworn in the 8 members of parliament, and I think there's this misconception that a lot of South Africans had that there were 8 members of Umkhonto weSizwe who were already sworn in being absent. That's not true. We are sitting in a situation where we had written to the Speaker of Parliament requesting that there be eight of these members be sworn in. And unfortunately, because of the Electoral Act and the prescripts thereof, you can only supplement members once. And most South Africans are aware, we're only able to supplement once, and that's it until only in June we will then be able to replace the 8. So even with those members who had been sworn in Parliament present, it would have been numerically unattainable. It would have still passed. And so on the issue of whether we would join the government of national unity, we don't sign deals with devils. And this is what happens when you sign a deal with, like this, what the ANC has found itself. The ANC has signed a Faustian pact, a deal with the devil. And you can never trust the devil. Because especially with what's happening right now, they'll use every single instrument possible to drive an agenda for their electorate as opposed to driving an agenda for the country. And the DA has forgotten that they are not in the opposition anymore. They are now government. And the decisions that they take, they need to be taking decisions that are for the country. But unfortunately, this GNU is a white monopoly capital program. The chairperson of the DA has said it. She said that this was really a convenience coalition to accommodate the president, from being impeached, because the president, we know, is friends with white monopoly capital. And that's why the letter that you're seeing right now, coming from the Boosas, and if you look at all the members who are participant in there, those are black billionaires, that's all members of Stellenbosch Mafia, who want to protect their assets, because that's what they care about. They don't care about the poor, and that's why you'll find them trying to obviously tout for a GNU to continue to be solidified and to continue, because it's their program. It's not a program that is for the plight of the people that we're faced with in this country, the joblessness that aims to address joblessness, issues of poverty, issues of healthcare, and issues of immigration. I mean, just if you look at the fact that they can actually even bring down, the spending of Home Affairs by 1.6%. Now, what does that mean for immigration when already we have such porous borders? So this so-called government of national unity is a liability to the people, it's a liability to the country, led by a president who, in effect, is a liability because he is at the center of why this GNU was formed in the first place.
Sure. Dr. Shimomura, the opportunity now of the EFF, were the opportunity there for the EFF to be a part of this government of national unity, would you take it? I mean, in December, we did see quotes from the EFF saying we'd be happy to join the government of national unity with some conditions.
No, now let me remind you, South Africans, I think they must not forget this easily. After the elections in 2024, The EFF was correct in characterizing the DA and the ANC coalition. We even warned the ANC to say, you don't have to form a majority government through coalition with the DA. You can form a minority government if you don't want to form a coalition with progressive political parties in parliament. And when it comes to issues of budget, like in this instance, we'll then negotiate case by case. We'll put forward a program of service delivery and say, we want 1, 2, 3, and 4. But with that condition, it meant that the ANC was going to run the government with a minority government, which will require a more genuine consultation. That's the first thing. The second thing, as recent as this weekend, the president, the commander-in-chief of the EFF, Julius Malema, said that we are ready to be part of a government of national unity. We are ready to go into coalition with the ANC and all progressive political parties, based on a clear program of service delivery. But on a condition that you don't have the DA and the FF Plus in that coalition. And this is for simple reason, and why the ANC now is currently having serious challenges. The DA will not agree with you on simple basics of how to constitute the state in terms of building its capacity. The DA will not agree with insourcing in terms of building state capacity, number one. The DA will not agree with the state playing an active role in reindustrialization of industries in Ekurhuleni, in all former black townships where we had factories in Shandima, in Mdantsane, in Putatichava. They will not agree to that. The DA will not agree with a situation where the state lead economic development, whereas you can give a clear mandate to the private sector to say, your role starts here and end here, so that we're able to grow the economy, we're able to create jobs, and. The DA will not agree with that. So when you go into a coalition with such an arrangement, where they are very clear and transparent about their policies, you can't expect to have a different outcome later on.
Okay, but I want to know the EFF's position, because now we're talking about the DA, which is quite an opposition thing to do. The criticism of the DA for many years has been they talk about who's in government, they talk about others, not themselves. What is the position of the EFF at this point? And let me tell you why I'm challenging you. You've got, for instance, the EFF that has been coming out of this fiscal framework sitting with that portfolio committee saying that they're going to head to court and challenge the process. So were the EFF to be in the government of national unity, would you have done the same? Would you have challenged the VAT hike? What would you have done?
I mean, like I said earlier, we are willing to go into government of national unity with the ANC. We're clear about that. If you go to the statements as early as last year, we have never minced our words about it. We are also clear about our relationship with the DA and FF Plus. We are not willing to go into that coalition, at least at a national level, where we have to frame policy and structure the state in terms of how it responds to everything else that we do, unlike in local government. There's no question about that, right? We're clear on that. But if you look at this budget, for example, because fundamentally they don't agree on how to reorganize the economy, they will not agree on a budget. A budget is an instrument of the economy through the state. So when the economy plays itself out and the state has to play a role, the only way the state plays a role is through its fiscal and monetary policy. Had the EFF been in government with the ANC, first of all, the engagements from the beginning were going to be far much more genuine. So if you look at the EFF proposal that we've made in the Standing Committee on Finance, but also we've published a document today, which says that when we went to a meeting, these were our proposals and were not captured correctly. You would have seen that there was not going to be a question of revenue shortfall in the first place, because our economic framework is far much broader. We talk about the PIC, we talk about surpluses that are at the compensation fund in the UIF, we talk about a macroeconomic policy that is not limited to the need to want to push the budget into what we call a fiscal surplus, right? Because we are saying once you push budget that direction, and you're still working within the growth framework of 1.8% in the next 3 years, you are definitely going to have higher unemployment. There's no doubt about it. So it means the conversation would have been far much more progressive. We would have found consensus with the SACP, obviously on reindustrialization, without even a discussion. It means that we're going to expand the entire fiscal framework, possibly even double it more than what MKP is saying, because there's an obvious need to expand the state. So there was never going to be an issue of VAT 14%, 0.5, 15%, 16% in 2 years. No, there was never going to be such a conversation because the overall framework, we're going to be in agreement with it. Well, a much more expansive state in terms of service delivery and the economy.
Coming out of last year's elections, you did have the SACP speaking for, a sort of marriage between the MK Party, EFF, and even the ANC, which is quite interesting. But this is what I want to bring in, Mr. Masuku, and perhaps you can help us with this. Once you do have you know, the decision to change the makeup of the government of national unity, this is what you run into. Then some changes that might very well need to be made where cabinet is concerned. Now, I'm keen to hear from you, just as a Tripartite Alliance members, if you have confidence that President Cyril Ramaphosa would make that sort of decisions. And I think this speaks to the confidence that you have in the strength of the president to make decisions that big that would have a trickle-down effect that impacts the very makeup of our cabinet.
Look, when you talk about the state and we talk about responsibility for, public responsibility, you can leave it to one person. It doesn't work like that. So, like in the ANC itself, currently, it's not the president that conclude. It's a collective, and in the alliance, that's how it happens when you deal with things. Even when the whatever arrangement of a unity of government or a coalition, what is important will be that these parties should understand that the responsibilities around them. So once they agree on the framework, like Dr. Shimora was saying, and then they agree also on who is going to participate, who is going to come in there, it's not going to be determined by, they will give it to the president to do that, because in any case, that's the one that is supposed to, but the frameworks and the principles are going to be determined by them collectively. So, so there is no way in which you would be is something that is going to happen somewhere else, and that's an illusion that the DA went there with, and then it didn't understand that you have to set the framework, and after setting the framework, you must then understand whether you want to be in that or you want to be outside. And once you are inside, you can opt out to be outside. And in any case, they are using the VAT to argue that they are representing the poor. They're not, because actually they are using it as a bargaining tool, because they're going in their negotiation, they're saying, no, we can agree if you take out the land, the issue of expropriation of land. We can agree with you when you take out NHI. We can agree with you when you take Bila Bill. All these progressive, and in any case, the other thing is that they are actually representing corporate, because in any case, corporate, in as much as we are arguing ourselves that the poor is going to suffer, corporate is going to suffer, because when the VAT comes up, the marks up are going to be up, and the food is going to be expensive for the majority of the people who are in South Africa, from whom they are extracting profit. Yep. And when it's higher, then they are going to have a problem. Even in the export, their export will be expensive. So they are asking the DA to represent their interests, not the interests of the poor. If they were arguing genuinely, they would have said, government, please, we are ready to give you a corporate tax. It would have been progressive.
Yeah, and that's not what is the center of the debate, really. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get the views of our guests on foreign policy, particularly after the tariff announcement by the US president, a big discussion that is impacting even how we start to plan ahead as a country. Stay with us. Welcome back. We continue our discussion, taking your calls on 010-594-6010. We've got Mlenza calling in from Richards Bay. Mlenza, good evening. Thanks for calling. What are your thoughts?
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Let me greet Comrade Ndlela there, and another panelist of yours whom you are there from EFF. Two things. From where I'm sitting with this GNU, or so-called government of GNU, I'm seeing a bunch of political parties who are confused, who does not know what are they standing for in the society. You see, this afternoon, we had Ubabu Hlabisa calling a media briefing. I was listening to him, to one of your sister radio stations. Babu Hlabisa, in that media briefing, took a posture of condemning the VAT increase. He said he's not for VAT increase. the IFP is not for VAT increase because they are leading the poor people. He kept on saying on a radio station, of course, FM, he kept on saying is representing the poorest of the poor, the marginalized and downtrodden, but he was saying it in Zulu. So when your constituency is formed by the people who are poorest of the poor, how can you agree on VAT increase? Like really, how can you agree on VAT increase? But now he's calling media briefing, he's condemning the increase, but he went there in Parliament and voted for it. But yeah, since I'm coming from KZ and especially in Skawin, we know the character of IFP. IFP has been the sellout long time ago. They've been the sellout a long time ago. So what they are doing now, changing tunes like a chameleon, we were expecting IFP to behave like this. IFP used to be in cahoot with the enemy.
Okay.
In fact, long time ago. So what they are doing now, it was expected of them. Another quick one before I forgot this one.
Briefly, yes.
Yep. Okay. You see, you've got two DAs there. Action SA, that is a DA. From where I'm sitting, and my understanding of political dynamics, Action SA is still a DA, but it's a DA that was angry about certain things in the original DA. So as they are jumping into the bed when DA is showing their true colors by playing a position of being an opposition while they are in government,
yes,
we were expecting Action SA to behave the way they are behaving as well. What we need here is what MK Party is calling for. To combine all progressive forces and ensure that the downtrodden and the marginalized are purely and rightfully represented.
All right, well, and this is what I want to do, Mlenz. I need to come in there because I'm running out of time, but I want to actually also find out, the strength and stability within the Progressive Caucus, in fact, as we wrap up the discussion. But there's a bigger one, I think, to be had. Thank you so much, Tim Mlenz, for calling. It's so hard to talk about what is happening internally in our country without discussing the impact of the international wins, the 30% tariff announcement by Donald Trump at just last week. And here's what I found particularly interesting. And Tlamulo, I have to throw this one at you because this is what we saw in January this year, a statement coming out of the MK Party. And I want to read from it, if you'll allow me. You wrote, this is, of course, the MK Party welcoming President Donald J. Trump's inauguration with the hope for global justice and sovereignty. And it reads, the MK Party views President Trump's leadership as a beacon of hope for dismantling six systems of exploitation and oppression that were perpetuated under previous administrations. Do you still hold that view when there are conversations of a white genocide, land grabs, and so much more coming out of the Trump administration?
Well, I think if you look at that statement, and I think this is important when you interpret a political statement, is that the posture that we took it was on the basis that Donald Trump was the only outspoken president against what was happening in the Russia-Ukraine war, where the previous administration spent close to 300 billion rand funding that. We're allies of Russia, and we are anti-war. And his stance was anti-war. In the same way, we raised issues pertaining to the ceasefire, and we supported it in Gaza between Hamas and Israel, where we said our posture as MKP is that people should be engaging in dialogue as opposed to war. Unfortunately, when that stance changes, then that's a different discussion. And if the Trump administration is now going to obviously engage against what we believe are principles of advancing humanity and peace globally, and even in terms of trade, then that becomes a problem. Because if you're going to be using tariffs as a punitive measure to drive a neo-colonial agenda, that becomes a problem. I think it's more so, it's an onslaught on the global economy. And if you look at who it actually impacts more than anyone else, just looking at us, is, if you were to look at AGOA, with it potentially being also cut, that's going to affect the same people that look like his friend, who his friend is the same proponent of. So we're saying that if things start to change and they're anti-progressive globally, then that becomes a problem for us.
Okay.
And so MK Party in any way is not saying it necessarily supports Donald Trump.
Are you concerned? I need to step this in. I need to squeeze this in. Are you concerned as a party of sanctions by the US against some leaders within the MK Party?
Well, we're not perturbed. On the basis of what would that be the case? Because that would be on an uninformed basis. So we're not perturbed. If that's the case, then we'll deal with it accordingly at that point in time.
Yeah, I think the same question for the EFF, concerns around possible sanctions against members and leaders of the EFF. I mean, this is your very own leader has been, you know, his name touted so publicly by Elon Musk, for instance, all over X, and then there's the killing of Kill the Boer. Is it an issue for you? How the EFF's impact on our foreign policy at the moment?
So there are two things, right? Firstly, the characterization of the president and the commander-in-chief of the EFF as a terrorist. That does not stem from allegation of corruption while he was in the ANC or any of that thing. It's precisely based on his policy position. And he said he welcomes it. He's not going to change his position on land expropriation without compensation. He's not going to change his position on all other cardinal pillars, nationalization of strategic sectors of the economy. He's happy with that. If those in the US want to characterize him as a terrorist precisely for positions on the policy, then that's fine. But the second thing, if you have to characterize someone like Donald Trump, you must be very careful. Firstly, he has not changed in the last 5 years. What he said 5 years ago when he lost presidency and now is the same thing. And I'm not going to get involved in the discussion that you just had with Nhlamulo now. That's fine. But Trump is clear on two things that he's going to go ahead with, whether there's diplomacy or not, whether there's a standing order of engagement that have been used in the past to resolve issues internationally or not. He wants to reposition the US for what it is, an imperialist economy that seeks to extract from all sides globally through deals, that those deals do not necessarily benefit those in the global south, but they benefit the US. And he's unashamedly about it. You know, so what he's saying now is not only recent. The EFF characterized Trump properly when he was elected as the president for the second term. Now, when you look at the kind of language that is coming out now in terms of the tariff, when you look at the markets and you characterize what's happening properly, you will appreciate that there has to be a rupture before anyone can fully appreciate that the US economy is fighting for its re-emergence as a dominant force against the global south, particularly led by China. And you can throw in Russia and Brazil and other BRICS countries there. So there has to be a focus on what we call domestic demand.
Okay.
So if you don't produce things that you consume on a regular basis and you want to rely on export, and what is China experiencing now, hence they have to go and reposition their entire economy, you will always be at the mercy of global players like Trump and their racism and the nationalist politics that don't serve the global development.
Yeah, that is an opinion that is getting louder and louder, certainly in the country. I'm out of time, but I want to bring this one in. Mr. Masuku, final thoughts. And I think I'll give you about 30 seconds for this one. Your recommendations to your alliance partner on the outcomes of this NWC. What do you want to hear at the end of it?
We want to hear the NWC saying that we are going to genuinely consider and listen, as we promised, to Parliament to review the budget and review the VAT. We want to hear them saying that we are going to build capacity in the state to drive economy and work on the productive trajectory that is building us to, will defend us from being dependent on other people. So that's what we're looking at.
All right. Before I let you go.
want them to say we are industrializing, all these things that Dr. Shimoro was talking about.
This is the SACP. They're talking about policy. I need to wrap this up. The Progressive Caucus, when last did it meet?
Well, we met, I think it was 2 weeks ago.
And it's standing strong.
And it's standing strong. But I think one point I just needed to make is that, just off the back of what Gumani said, Mkhonto Sizwe, by the way, has never toyed around with either participating in the GNU, neither even toyed around with the potential of supporting the VAT. So we just want to make that very clear, that our stance has been very clear. We will never in any way toy or play around with our people's vote, because we are clear, we're resolute, that we cannot participate in deals that are signed with the devil.
Okay, your point is heard. Progressive Caucus.
No, like you just answered you now, yeah.
Okay, consensus. And with that, we can wrap things up, gentlemen. Thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Nhlamulo Ndlela, the national spokesperson for the MK Party. Madala Masuku, the SACP First Deputy General Secretary, joining us via video link. Thank you so much. And Dr. Gumani Chimomora, who is EFF's senior researcher in studio with us. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition, with myself, Naledi Mola. We do have more news on the other side of this short break. Stay with us.